For thousands of years, ancient Egypt stood beside the Nile like a miracle carved in stone. It built pyramids that touched the sky. It raised temples larger than palaces. It created pharaohs who were worshipped like gods. But even the greatest civilizations can weaken. And Egypt did not fall in one single day. Its fall was slow, dramatic, complicated, and filled with powerful enemies, ambitious rulers, foreign invasions, and one of the most famous queens in history. This is the story of the fall of ancient Egypt. To understand Egypt's fall, we first need to remember how powerful it once was. During the New Kingdom, Egypt became one of the greatest empires of the ancient world. Pharaohs like Thutmose III, Hatshepsut, Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ramesses II ruled over a wealthy and powerful kingdom. Egypt controlled lands beyond the Nile Valley. Its armies marched into Nubia and the Levant. Gold flowed from the south. Trade goods came from across the ancient world. The temples of Karnak and Luxor grew larger and more magnificent. Pharaohs built statues, obelisks, tombs, and monuments meant to last forever. Ramesses II, one of Egypt's most famous rulers, filled the land with images of his power. His temples at Abu Simbel still look out over the desert today. To the people of Egypt, it must have seemed impossible that such a civilization could ever fall. But beneath the glory, problems were beginning to grow. After the time of Ramesses II, Egypt remained impressive, but it was no longer as strong as before. The empire became harder to control. Foreign lands were expensive to defend. Armies needed supplies, temples needed wealth, officials needed payment. At the same time, powerful priests gained more influence, especially the priests of Amun at Thebes. In theory, the pharaoh ruled everything. But in reality, Egypt's power was becoming divided. Some regions became more independent. Local rulers grew stronger. The royal government became weaker. There were also economic problems. Records from the late New Kingdom mention labor strikes by tomb workers at Deir el-Medina. These workers helped build royal tombs, but at times they were not paid properly in food supplies. This shows us something important. Even in mighty Egypt, the system was under pressure. The great machine of the kingdom was still moving, but its gears were beginning to crack. Around the late Bronze Age, the Eastern Mediterranean world entered a period of chaos. Great kingdoms collapsed. Trade networks broke down. Cities were destroyed or abandoned. Among the mysterious forces of this age were groups known today as the Sea Peoples. Their exact origins are still debated, but ancient Egyptian records describe them as dangerous groups who attacked by land and sea. During the reign of Ramesses III, Egypt faced a major threat. The Sea Peoples pushed toward Egypt, bringing families, warriors, ships, and wagons. They were not simply raiders. They looked like people searching for new lands. Ramesses III claimed victory over them in great temple inscriptions at Medinet Habu. Egypt survived, but survival came at a cost. The battles drained resources. The wider world around Egypt had changed. Old allies and trade partners were weakened or gone. Egypt had defended itself, but it was now more isolated. And after Ramesses III, Egypt's power continued to decline. Over time, Egypt became divided. The pharaohs still ruled in name, but real power was often split between different regions. In the north, rulers controlled the Nile Delta. In the south, priests and local leaders held power around Thebes. This period is known as the Third Intermediate Period. It was not a complete collapse. Egypt still had cities, temples, art, religion, and kings. But it was no longer the united superpower it had once been. Different dynasties ruled different parts of the land. Libyan leaders gained influence and even became pharaohs. Later, rulers from Nubia to the south took power and formed Egypt's 25th dynasty. These Nubian pharaohs respected Egyptian culture deeply. They restored temples and presented themselves as true protectors of ancient traditions. But Egypt was now caught between powerful neighbors, and soon an empire from the east would arrive. The Assyrian Empire was one of the most feared powers of the ancient world. Its armies were disciplined, brutal, and highly organized. In the 7th century BC, Assyria invaded Egypt. The Nubian pharaohs tried to resist, but Assyria was extremely powerful. Cities were attacked, and Egypt was forced into a new political reality. Eventually, a new Egyptian dynasty rose in the city of Sais, in the western Nile Delta. This Site dynasty brought a period of revival. Egypt traded with the Greeks. Greek mercenaries served in Egyptian armies. The economy improved, and Egyptian culture continued to shine. For a moment, it looked like Egypt might rise again. But this revival depended on a dangerous balance. Egypt was independent but surrounded by powerful empires, and one of those empires was growing stronger than all the rest. In 525 BC, the Persian Empire conquered Egypt. The Persian king Cambyses II defeated Pharaoh Psamtik III at the Battle of Pelusium. Egypt became part of the vast Persian Empire. For Egyptians, this was a painful moment. The land that had once ruled foreign territories was now ruled by foreigners. Persian kings sometimes presented themselves as pharaohs. They used Egyptian titles and supported temples when it served their rule. But many Egyptians resisted Persian control. Rebellions broke out. At times, Egypt regained independence for short periods. Native Egyptian pharaohs returned, but their rule was fragile. The last native-born pharaoh of Egypt was Nectanebo II. He fought to defend Egypt, but in 343 BC, the Persians conquered the country again. This marked the end of native Egyptian rule. After more than 2,000 years of pharaohs born from Egyptian dynasties, Egypt's ancient kingship had been broken. But the story was not over. A new conqueror was coming. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great entered Egypt. He had already defeated Persian forces and was building one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. To many Egyptians, Alexander was not seen as just another invader. He was welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. Alexander respected Egyptian religious traditions. He visited the Oracle of Amun at Siwa Oasis, where he was associated with divine kingship. He also founded a new city on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria. This city would become one of the greatest centers of learning, trade, and culture in the ancient world. After Alexander died in 323 BC, his empire was divided among his generals. Egypt came under the control of Ptolemy, one of Alexander's commanders. He founded the Ptolemaic dynasty. These rulers were Greek in origin, but they ruled Egypt as pharaohs. They built temples in Egyptian style, honored Egyptian gods, and connected themselves to ancient traditions. But they also kept Greek language, culture, and political systems at the center of power. Egypt was now a blend of old and new. Ancient pharaohs still appeared on temple walls, but the kingdom was changing forever. The early Ptolemies made Egypt wealthy and powerful. Alexandria became famous for its lighthouse, its library, its scholars, and its busy harbor. Ships from across the Mediterranean came to Egypt. Grain from the Nile fed cities far beyond its borders. But inside the royal palace, the Ptolemaic family was full of conflict. Brothers married sisters, relatives fought for the throne, court politics became dangerous and violent. Over time, Egypt became weaker. The kingdom still looked rich, but its rulers often depended on foreign support to survive. And in the Mediterranean, a new power was rising: Rome. At first, Rome was an ally, then it became a protector, and finally it became a master. Egypt's rulers needed Roman approval. Roman politicians became involved in Egyptian disputes. Egyptian wealth became deeply important to Roman ambition. By the time Cleopatra VII came to the throne, Egypt was still independent, but only barely. Cleopatra VII is one of the most famous rulers in history. She was intelligent, politically skilled, and highly educated. She spoke several languages and understood the danger facing her kingdom. Cleopatra was not an ancient Egyptian by blood. She belonged to the Greek Ptolemaic dynasty, but she embraced Egypt more than many of her ancestors had. She presented herself as a pharaoh and connected herself with the goddess Isis. Her great challenge was Rome. Cleopatra first allied herself with Julius Caesar. Their relationship helped her secure power in Egypt. After Caesar was assassinated in 44 BC, Rome fell into another power struggle. Cleopatra later allied with Mark Antony, one of Rome's most powerful leaders. Together, Cleopatra and Antony tried to build a future that could protect Egypt and challenge Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir. But Octavian was clever. He turned Roman opinion against them. He presented Antony as a man controlled by a foreign queen. In 31 BC, the conflict reached its turning point at the Battle of Actium. Octavian's forces defeated the fleet of Antony and Cleopatra. The dream of saving Egypt was collapsing. After Actium, Antony and Cleopatra returned to Egypt. But Octavian followed. In 30 BC, Roman forces entered Alexandria. Antony died. Cleopatra, facing defeat and humiliation, also took her own life. Her death marked the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty. It also marked the end of ancient Egypt as an independent kingdom. Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. Rome did not destroy Egypt. In fact, Egypt remained incredibly important. Its grain helped feed Rome. Its temples continued to function for centuries. Egyptian religion, art, and traditions survived under Greek and Roman influence. But the age of the pharaohs was over. No longer would Egypt be ruled by its own kings and queens. No longer would the Nile kingdom stand as an independent ancient power. After thousands of years, Egypt had fallen. But here is the amazing thing. Ancient Egypt fell politically, but it never truly disappeared. Its monuments remained. The pyramids still stood in the desert. The temples still lined the Nile. The tombs still held stories painted in color. The hieroglyphs still waited to be read again. For centuries, travelers stared at Egypt's ruins in wonder. Then in modern times, scholars began to unlock the language of the pharaohs, especially after the discovery of the Rosetta Stone. The world began to hear Egypt's voice again. And that is why ancient Egypt still feels alive today. Its fall was not the end of its story. It was the beginning of its legend. Egypt teaches us that even the strongest civilizations can weaken when power divides. Enemies rise, economies struggle, and leaders lose control. But it also teaches us something hopeful. A civilization can fall and still shape the world forever. The pharaohs are gone. The empire is gone. But ancient Egypt remains one of the most unforgettable civilizations in human history. Utro, from Rameses and the Sea Peoples to Persia, Alexander, Cleopatra, and Rome, the fall of ancient Egypt was not one moment. It was a long journey from greatness to survival to foreign rule, and from foreign rule to legend. And even after Egypt lost its independence, its memory only grew stronger. Because some civilizations do not vanish, they become eternal. Thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe.